We all know that planting churches requires money, and money can be tight. And so, while we might be tempted to cut corners, there are certain things in planting churches and leading churches we should spend money on. And so, today on Practical Church Planting, we're going to share with you 5 resources church planters should spend money on.
Thanks for joining us again today on Practical Church Planting. Today we're going to be giving you 5 resources that churches should spend money on.
So these are not things that are like extra that are nice to have.
Yep.
These are things that we would say you should spend money on. And we see Dr. Church Planters, people asking questions about the cheapest versions of these. Now, this probably won't be a surprise to you because we talk about often how you should spend money on things that matter because it's about long-term health, and changing things later can be it could be a pain, all that sort of thing. So we're going to give you 5 things you should spend money on. Now, the caveat is, if you can't afford these things, then you probably should not be planting. So and I get like money's tight, so you have to be wise and you shouldn't overspend, but there are certain necessities that if you can't afford right now, it's a sign that you're not ready. Now, we always say if you want to plant a house church and that's your goal, then you don't need these things. But most people that listen to this podcast want to plant a church and grow a little bit and plant other churches. And so you need systems and structures and resources to allow you to do that. And so if you can't afford these things, then you're not set up to be a church that is going to grow.
Yep.
Now, again, we know God can do, and he can, but more often than not, our experience is it takes some groundwork in the beginning that if you aren't there yet and you just assume if I just preach the Bible, everybody is going to come, that's not how it works.
Yeah, and I think I'd also say, especially if you're newer to this podcast and maybe don't know entirely like our context, these are things regardless of church size at your launch you should have.
Yeah.
This isn't like we're only talking about the really large launching model, or that we're now a large church and kind of out of, sometimes you talk about like especially like production equipment, and you talk to some people who seem like maybe a little out of touch with what small church planting really is.
Yeah.
This is stuff that none of these all cost. None of them are very expensive. None of them are out of the realm of reality in terms of cost, but they're things that every church, regardless of size, needs.
Yes.
So regardless of where you are, if you want to plant a church that is going to grow a little bit, regardless of where you are in your launch phase, these are things you're going to need to start thinking about.
Maybe to make this tangible for you, if you have a desire for your church to be 75 people or more, you need these things. And having them in the beginning so that you can, be in a good spot to get there and not to change later will help you. So that's enough of that. Let's get
on with it.
Number 1 is presentation software. So again, all of these are things we see a lot of people asking, like what's the cheapest?
Yep.
And so you have like PowerPoint, or I don't know, all the other ones.
Yeah, I forget what they're called.
And some of them might be fine, some of them not. And it's like, this is part of the thing too, is how much time it takes you to do things. So if you get something free like PowerPoint or Keynote that you have to change often and you have to add things to, and you can't like copy paste, it's not intuitive. It takes you a lot of time, where buying something, and the nice thing about this, like we use ProPresenter is what we recommend. There's other ones out there, that's fine, but our goal is like if you're just trying to find the cheapest, then you're going to miss out, because even ProPresenter, it's a one-time cost. They upgrade it every couple of years. I don't know. I think it's $500 or $700.
Yeah, I think it's
like
$500-$600.
So it's like, yeah, it's not free, but the amount of time that you are going to use it it's so dramatically helpful, and like it's created for churches. And so, again, it's a little bit more advanced, but if you've got songs, you do like verses and choruses and bridges, and they're really easy to customize. It keeps all of your, all your graphics, all of your sermon slides, you have like a database for all your songs. It's all in one space. It's intuitive and it's easy to train people on. So even if they don't know how to like add and do everything, like you can show someone how to go to the next slide. And it's just, so this is one of the things where not only is it, the product is better than a lot of the other things, but the amount of time that people spend on trying to do cheap stuff, particularly this one, is going to cost you in the long run. And so we use ProPresenter. I mean, it's the best one that we know of.
Yep.
And it's also good because a lot of other people use it. That's part of this was too. When a lot of other people use it, there's YouTube videos, there's people you can ask, there's other churches in your area you might have a question about. And so, $500 to $600 for something you're going to use every week is well worth it.
Yes, and this is, I think with just about every one of these, there's going to be either free or extremely cheap option out there that if you're really small, just starting off, maybe like a 1 or 2 person team, you can skate by with. But it's not scalable. Like that's the issue with like things like PowerPoint and things like that. If you're just like we're meeting in our house right now, pre-launch, we're just doing like Bible studies or whatever, and we want to launch, but we're a really small team, and right now I'm using PowerPoint and it's working just fine.
Yep.
That's probably true, and it probably is like covering all your needs right now. But especially as you move into a building that may have some facility, some production related facilities, or you start bringing other people on the team, or start doing a little bit more complicated things, it's just not going to scale, and it's going to take up a lot more time than it's worth.
Yep.
And so the challenge with these is to be able to look down the road a little bit, not just what you need right now, but what you're going to need in the future. And something like ProPresenter is something that, I mean, churches from when we first launched, which we launched, less than 100 people, or in our first year, less than 100 people, to churches that are, to mega church. Like it's the standard for large churches, And so it's not something that you're going to have to change your mind down the road. It's a one-time cost, and other than their periodic upgrades, it's going to serve you forever.
Yeah, that's a good point. Number one, you feel like, well, we're just having a Bible study now, so ProPresenter is using, that's fine. Mm-hmm. But if you like have a launch day and you're approaching, and your goal is to be over 75 people, you need to have this in there. And also, like one of the nice things about ProPresenter is like the mega churches with a lot of money and resources, they also use it. Mm-hmm. So this is one of the things that you actually can use, that they use and afford and learn from. Background, motion graphics, there's so many things that you're going to want to do that it just has. And again, the problem not only with some of these free things is they take more time and effort. Eventually, if you do get to the place where you think you can't afford it, you're going to have to switch everything over, which is going to be annoying. You're going to have to retrain people on how it works. You're going to have to relearn how it works. And so, again, $500 is not nothing. But if you're in a healthy place and thinking of long-term growth, long-term sustainability, this is something that you should buy.
And that's a really good point, because if you're looking at this or some of these other ones and you're thinking, we're just doing pre-launch gatherings, we don't need it yet, we'll think about when we get closer to launch. The more things you start saying, we'll think about it later, it's just going to make your launch time more and more stressful. If you're thinking, then we'll switch this system over, then we'll switch some of these other systems over, you're going to get there and wish that you had done it before. Yep. And the good thing about something like ProPresenter is inevitably, if you grow, some people are going to come that have some experience with other churches. Mm-hmm. And that's something that you can pretty much guarantee if they've been in production before, they'll have experience with. To where if you bring someone joins your church and they have some production experience and you kind of hand them something like, what is it? Just a PowerPoint. Yeah. I think you're going to be a lot less likely for them to join the team. Like if they're familiar with one way of doing it that pretty much most churches do, and say we do it this really non-intuitive way, I think you're going to kind of drive some people away from serving.
Yep. So one-time costs, you're going to buy it anyway. You might as well buy it now, but maybe you're a little way from launch. Put in your budget, say it's going to happen. But again, the good thing about it, it's not a monthly subscription, so I would buy it as soon as possible so that you can start learning how to do it and figuring things out.
Exactly.
So you should buy presentation software. Number 2, financial software.
Yep.
So this one won't be a surprise as well. None of these I don't think are really going to be a surprise. A lot of times people are asked, like, what do you guys use? What's the cheapest out there? Again, you should use things that will save you time and things that, especially for like a church planter, it's helpful to use things that you can find online support for, and not just like from the companies, because all that companies may be good, may not be good. But if there's YouTube videos or things, you have problems. If it's a well-known thing, other people use it, you can find an answer sooner, which will also save your time. And so we use QuickBooks.
Sure do.
Which we would recommend. I don't know if they do a nonprofit discount. Do they do a nonprofit discount?
So you can go to TechSoup.org, and if you have a 501c3, you can get discounts for a lot of things. But QuickBooks Online, they generally have a discount for.
And we use QuickBooks because, everybody uses QuickBooks. Yep. It's easy to understand. And again, as you grow, you're going to want to do something that can do everything. Because if you're like, we only have a handful of people giving, I can use a spreadsheet and I can do this, that's not sustainable. Yep. And again, if you have to transfer your information to a different software later, you're going to lose all the stuff that you've done. So, Brian, you're the money guy around here.
So QuickBooks Online is what you want, because there's other types, but QuickBooks Online is the most intuitive, user-friendly. If you've never done it before, you can learn. And this isn't something like it's tough, because obviously if you're a one-person show, if you're the lead pastor, it's tough for me to tell you, hey, you need to start learning accounting of all the things that you're doing. But it's something that has to be done, so you need to either figure out if you can get a volunteer to help with it, or there are options for outsourcing, which that costs more money, but those are good options as well. But if you want to keep it in-house, if it's something that you're going to do here, QuickBooks is just, there might maybe ones that are a little bit cheaper, or there are ones that are closer to free, but like you said, the support, the intuitiveness, the user friendliness of it just don't compare. And the thing about QuickBooks is it's been around so long and so many people use it. Any issue you ever run into, you will find an answer in no time. And they even have like live chat support if you can't find it online. And so it's just it's something that it's good to learn. It's good to get a volunteer to learn. And odds are, especially as you grow, you're gonna get people serving that have experience with it, because if they do any sort of bookkeeping in the marketplace, they have experience with it. If they have experience with anything, it's going to be with QuickBooks, and so it's going to serve you well in the long run.
And you might, again, as a church plant or a smaller church, you might have different people help at different seasons. So again, even if you have to outsource it, they're probably going to use QuickBooks as well.
Oh, for sure.
And so you want to get something that is just, it's standard. It's going to have all your data. You don't have to transfer it later. You might as well, you or someone on your team, learn how to start using it now and not having to relearn how to use different things later. So we recommend QuickBooks Online. I'm sure there are other options, but again, this one should not be what is the cheapest thing I can find. This is a monthly fee, but again, if you are not in a place where you can spend a couple $100 when you talk about all these monthly fees, you're not in a place to launch in a healthy. We would not, if you're in a Western context, you're probably not in a place to do what you might want to do. Again, it's not better or worse. It's just, if you're not trying to plant house churches, you're going to have some of this stuff.
And the thing about it is, in the very beginning, whether you've launched or pre-launch, your accounting is generally going to be stupidly simple. Like, you don't have much going on. It's what you spend and what you bring in. Like, it's not hard to set up. It's not hard to account for. And so you may be thinking, like, why wouldn't I go with the cheapest? Because things are really simple right now. But as you grow, things do get more complicated. And we're not talking like once you hit 1,000 people coming on a Sunday or something like that, but just once you're around a little bit longer, you start bringing people on that you're paying, you're having to do more tax-wise things, you maybe even get some debt, things like that. Like, things do get a little more complicated the longer you're around. And so cheaping out in the beginning in the first, pre-launch, and maybe even in the first year, all across the board, they might be equal for you. Like, you may be able to get by with the cheap ones just fine and have it be no big deal. But as you grow, things are going to get more complicated, and you want the software that can do pretty much anything you want it to do.
Yeah, we talk about often that we get so focused on the launch day, and we don't focus on like, what do we want? What would you, in an ideal and realistic world, where would you want your church to be in 3 years? And what are the things that you are going to need to get there? You're going to need a presentation software that's not not PowerPoint. You're going to need a financial software that's it's normal, because you're taking in probably some more money than you're taking in now if you're just launching, or even if you've been around for a while and you have desire to grow a little bit and all that sort of thing. Where do you want to be in 3 years? What do you need to get there? This list.
And I'll give you a practical example of how this played out. So we launched a church earlier this year. And Adam, the church planter, the pastor of it, as he was looking for things, we had a discussion, and I'm running his books for him, like I'm doing his accounting for him. If he had said I'm going to do something other than QuickBooks, I would have said no. I would have said I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
And look, most of them are like, if you can do QuickBooks, you can do it. Like, they're all credits and debits. It's not a difficult thing, but I don't have time. Like, this isn't what I do I'm not a bookkeeper for a living, and so I don't have time in my day to go from like one software to another and all these different things. So I would have said you need to find somebody else. But because he did something that's pretty much industry standard, if you have experience in this industry, you have experience with QuickBooks, it was easy for us to say, yeah, we can take that on and we can figure things out.
Yep. So financial software.
Yep.
Number 2, a church database system. Or sorry, number 3, a church database system. So again, this is like Church Community Builder or Planning Center, or there's a lot of them.
Those are the big ones.
Those are the big ones, and there's lots of other ones with different costs.
Yeah.
I mean, we're a fan of Planning Center because it's the most user-friendly, and it doesn't matter how many how many features a database has. If people aren't going to use it and interact with it, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
Now, the thing is too, like, we don't use our database center for that many things. I think that's part of the appeal with some of these. It's like they can do Planning Center can do a lot. Like, they can do groups and all this sort of thing. We don't use it for that, but you want something that's usable. Now, again, for this one, the nice thing is they also, a lot of these places, especially if they're church related, like a database system, if you're a church plant, you just tell them, and there's a good chance you'll get a discount.
Yep.
We always say that because if they want church planters particularly, because then you're going to be there with them for the long haul.
Yep.
So be sure to reach out and ask. But don't get something just because it's cheap. Get something that's good. Planning Center is, I think a lot of them are probably like this. Like, you pay more based on the size of your church. And so it can be easy to be like, well, this software, if you're 50 people or 100 people or less, is this cost. But Planning Center is this cost or this cost. You want something that's easy, usable. Again, something that's got good support that you can look up online,
Yep.
and not just something. Again, the database software is something that's like not fun to transfer over, because I see, in the Practical Church Planning Facebook group or other church communication groups or whatever we're in on Facebook, where people are like, "Hey, we're looking to make the switch," and they're like, "Anything we should know of, because it's going to be a lot of work."
Yep.
And so pick something that you could use for 5 years, not just because it's something that might be $50 less a month right now, because it's going to be so annoying to have to transfer all that data over later.
Yeah, and this one is a little tough because, like you said, all of them have different sorts of features, and they're all going to sound great to you pre-launch, but you're not going to use a lot of them. Like, planning, like you said, Planning Center has a lot of features that we don't use, and I'm sure they're great. And I know churches do things different ways, and some churches use them and some don't. But if you just go based on like this one has so many features, obviously that's probably not the free one. But if you're just like, if you just go based on how many features, different features it has, you may be spending money for things you don't end up using. And so I look for something that's scalable, that like just like the other things, that is going to last for the long run, that you're going to be able to use regardless of your size of church. But if you just look for the cheapest thing possible, it's not going to be the most helpful. It's not going to be the most intuitive, and it's going to. I mean, just like we've been saying, it's going to be a challenge as you grow. So get something that's going to last for the long run. Those are the ones that we recommend. I mean, there are a few other, that we have experience in, I should say. There are a few others, but cost has to factor in at some point. You can't be unrealistic and just say we're going to spend money on whatever. But you also need to be realistic in that if you try and cheap out on everything, you're not going to get things that are going to work in the long run.
Yeah, and I'm sure other ones are like this as well. Again, we have experience with Planning Center. There are certain features that you don't have to have, so you don't have to even pay for them. You don't have to, you can add things later on, so you don't have to buy everything up front. But something that you can understand, that like your serve team will actually respond to and use, and that has a good reputation, because you're gonna. I mean, changing this stuff later is annoying. Having to relearn it later is super annoying. So find something that you're willing to spend some money on. Again, this is going to add up. A database system, a financial system. But you put it in the budget. If you can't afford it, this might be a sign, again, that you're not quite ready. But don't just go for the cheapest option. Go for something that's usable. Because, again, this is not frivolous stuff either. This is stuff that is important for long-term sustainability and your sanity. So.
And one thing I'd say, and I feel a little weird saying this, but I would be hesitant. If you're shopping around, I'd be hesitant to go with something you've never heard of. And I have a hard time saying that because, like, I want to support the little guy, and like, I don't feel like everyone always has to go to the big company, whatever. But like, if you've never heard of it, or if you're searching in like some of these, church planner Facebook groups, and you don't see it ever coming up, it's going to be tough for you to get questions answered of it. And I get new companies launch, and some of them are probably amazing. And so I'm not saying like you have to automatically discount, but that'd be one red flag, I would say, if you're searching around, that if someone's trying to sell you on this company and you never heard of it, it may be real challenging to get questions answered, or to get support if you can't really find many churches that are using that same software.
Yep. So church database system. Number 4 is what we call online engagement. Now this could include social media, YouTube, stuff online. Now, this is a thing that you technically don't have to spend any money on. Like, you can make your own posts, you can do videos, whatever. I would argue that if you have $0 in your budget for stuff like this, then you don't care about it. Because it's so vitally important, especially because of COVID and coming out of COVID, and people are just. I mean, our anecdotal experience so far is people are coming even less than they came before, and I've had more. Even last week, I had somebody, or this past Sunday, who's in his 60s, and he wasn't here 2 weeks ago, and he was telling me something he was asking me a question or something about the sermon that he wasn't there for because he watched it on YouTube, and it's like. I don't know if he would have done that before. Yeah. But like even the 60-year-old guy didn't come on Sunday, watched the live stream.
Yeah.
And is connecting with us online. And so all that to say, you should be spending some money on it. Now, we have, again, if you go to practicalplanting.com, we have a free church planter's guide to social media, or it's really just pastor's guide, ministry's guide and it's free. So you just put your email in, you get it, send it to you for free. And it talks about practical things you could do, but there are a lot of graphics and church social media websites that produce these things.
Yep.
We've used Pro Church tools in the past. We're using Sunday Social right now. I think there's one at the moment. I'm on a free trial for Ignite because the Sunday Social one is fine, but I kind of like want to try something else.
Mhm.
There's tons of them out there.
Yeah.
And so, but they have monthly fees to them. Now, a lot of them are not expensive, like $20,
Yeah.
$30, $10, and it helps you have consistent content that you can mix with your own things that you're doing. And so, I would budget financial money, but also time, like learning YouTube. We just did a YouTube episode a few episodes ago. You can check out New City's YouTube channel at New City RDU on YouTube to see kind of the things that we're doing. But you need to allocate budgetary time in your with your money and with your time to figure these things out. And if you're not great at them, you should start and you should get some help. But don't be so intimidated that I don't know how to do anything or I'm not good at it, so I'm not even going to try. If you want to grow and reach more people, you've got to spend some time figuring this out.
Yep. And I mean, that's what these services are for. If you're not great at it, like if you're not great at it, just the two that we've used with Nucleus and Sunday Social. I'm not a big social media person. I get the rules behind social media, like you need to be consistent in posting and content and stuff like that. But if you just handed me a social media account, I wouldn't want to manage it. That's not what I want to do. But with these services, I could manage a social media account well, because they make it so clear you can just go and download and post. Like so if you're terrible at it, that's really what these are for. I mean, and they're for if you're good at it too. But if you should not be intimidated, because there are services that will take all the thinking out for you. Yep. Like, I mean, I haven't messed too much around with Sunday Social, so I don't know if they do this or not. But I know when we were with Nucleus, like they would give you, I think they would give you like date, like this is what you should post Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, right?
They give you a post for every day. I mean, you could do whatever you want.
Well, sure, but like if you just were to follow that, you'd have a better social media account than most churches that you've ever seen. Like it does not take a lot, and like you need to spend time learning it, but don't just, I would say, even if you think you're good, like have a good personal social media account or anything like that. This is different. Yeah. And you don't need to just solve it all on your own. There are services that will help you do it, and it'll take a lot of time out of your day, and it'll be better than 90%, I'm going to say, of us would do on our own. Yeah.
Yeah. And here's the thing about social media. There are, and online and YouTube stuff, there are certainly people that do not care about it. Like Brian doesn't care about it. But there are people who really care about it. And so why not do something that a lot of people care about? I think Brian's also interesting because he doesn't really care about social media, but him and his wife came to our church because of social media.
So maybe I should clarify. When I say I don't care, like I'm still on it. I just don't care about posting things myself. Yeah. So like you wouldn't look at mine and be like, he should manage a social media account, because I hardly ever post anything. But I'm on and I look at other stuff. And literally the reason we joined New City 4.5 whatever years ago is because they were the only church plant we could find that looked like they were not closed down.
Like we hadn't launched yet, but we were doing stuff.
We were doing stuff, and I found so many church plants that had like, we're going to be launching at this time, but hadn't posted anything in months or weeks. And church planting is a little bit tough, and so sometimes things kind of fold. Yeah. And so there were so many that like they looked in their previous pictures like things may have been going on, but I don't even know if they're still around. In New City, it's not like things were like amazing, right? But they looked like they weren't closed. And that was literally all it took. And I messaged saying, hey, we're looking for a church plant that hasn't closed down. Can we join you? And that was it. And so it doesn't take a ton, but it takes work. Yeah, it takes something.
If you haven't launched yet, you should be doing this. Yes. In our launch team courses, you can get practicalplanting.com/launch. We also talk about social media. Mm-hmm. If you're 6 to 9 months away or sooner from launching, you should start doing this. Yep. And it should be budgeted in your time and in your finances. And even if it's basic, like it doesn't have to be amazing, but it just has to do something. I am consistently amazed at large churches who just don't do this well. Mm-hmm. They don't. Mm-hmm. And like Facebook and Instagram and even YouTube, but let's just say like social media for now, like Facebook and Instagram, those are the biggest ones. Twitter, it's like whatever. Like even if, like these churches, like they'll post like once or twice a week, and it's like a text-only post. And I'm like, you have so many people at your church. It doesn't have to be amazing, but just more consistently and not just watch the sermon. Like it takes so little to be above average in this area. Yep. You just have to want it. So I would encourage you, don't be intimidated by it. The only way to get better at it is to try it. And so if you don't have somebody, just start it yourself. Again, we have a lot of episodes on this, our website, that you could figure things out, but there should be some time and money in your calendar, or else don't get frustrated if new people aren't showing up.
Yep, exactly.
And then last but not least, number 5, a church website builder. Most people don't know how to make a website at all. Now there's lots of these. The good thing about these is there's lots of these and they're inexpensive. Yeah. So you could do, we did WordPress for a while because I had some experience with it, and annoying to have to update, and it wasn't that great. And then we did Pro Church Tools for a while. Now we're currently using the Church Co. or the Church Company. We don't, and by the way, we're not sponsored by any of these people.
Yeah.
Now, if they want to sponsor
want
us,
to, yeah.
come on. But these are just stuff we use, and it's there's different options. I think we're like the $29 a month or whatever. It's so. I mean, it's just it is so worth it. I mean, I would spend $100 a month because it's just. It's plug and play. They even have new themes every once in a while that you can switch, and you just click a button, and it's like a completely new website.
Yeah.
I did this like 2 or 3 months ago. I was like, Brian, tell me if you like it, and it was like all I did was click a button because they had a new theme, and it changed everything. So you should have something that you should spend money on. Now, again, if you're 6 to 9 months or less from launching, your website needs to be live. It doesn't have to have a lot of information on it, but it needs to be live. And we have episodes on. I mean, we've got a lot now, so I don't know the number. But you can look through it. We've got episodes on what your website needs to have, also what needs to be on the homepage, so we won't rehash all that here. But finding something that you're spending some money each month so that it just looks good. It's also fast. So even when we did WordPress, it wasn't always the fastest, but a lot of these church website builders, and specifically church website builders too, they're fast, they're clean, and they've got pretty good support. A lot of them have Facebook groups and that sort of thing. And so you should have a church website builder. That makes it a lot easier than you might think it is. If you don't try something like this.
Yep. There's a couple challenges of going a different way. Like I know there are people who want to outsource to like if you have a person in your church who or on your team who is a web designer or whatever, to have them do it, which we did for a little bit. We had someone who helped out. He didn't build it, but who would help out. But it was really challenging when you want to make changes to
you have to ask, you have to wait,
schedule it, and all that stuff. And I've been a part of organizations before that did this. And it's, you have to send your changes to the person, wait for them to respond, wait for them to do it. If they're not the way you want, send it back. It's a long process and it's expensive. It is not cheap and I mean, I get if you have a volunteer that's doing it for free, but that's a costly option. And I think a not very intuitive option, which I know I'm besmirching an entire industry of people, but it's tough, especially in the beginning. And the other option is if you yourself are a web designer I'll do it myself, and you can, but the challenge is you're the only one who's ever going to be able to really make changes to your site. For right now, Dylan really manages the website, but if there's ever changes that needs to be made, it's very easy for someone else to do it, and he can ask someone else to do it. Yeah. He does most of it, but if he's gone or out of town and something needs to happen, it's not solely dependent on him. It's where if you've built this from scratch, you really can't get any help with it at all, or you can't really pass it off to anybody else.
Yeah.
And so these the church coach we use now, when Dylan made the change to our website a few months ago or whatever, which apparently was just like a button click, it was a change it's hard to even describe the before and after. Before it was good, but it was such a drastic change that you could not tell a web developer, I want you to do this, because you wouldn't be able to think of it, or you wouldn't be able to describe what it is. It's stuff that we would, if we were doing it ourselves, or if we were kind of outsourcing to somebody or a volunteer, it would not be anywhere near what it is now. And that's not because of anyone's talent. It's just because we wouldn't have even known that this was an option for us to do, And so this is something that's really cheap, and it's managed really well. Our website is not just not just looks good, but it's fast. Yep. It doesn't get slowed down. And I don't have a problem saying any of this about praising our own website, because we did very little, and it's all them. We didn't do a lot to set this up. And so there are really good options that are going to serve you a lot better than trying to do it on your own, or just trying to learn WordPress on your own and building it from scratch. So you got a church website builder. Also, a pro tip, especially when it comes to having other people help you on the website. I am a big proponent of getting your sermon online quickly, particularly the podcast. So a lot of times churches are like, it's coming on Tuesday. And I'm always like, why? Yeah. I mean, you take the audio and the video, but especially the audio, you put it in GarageBand or whatever, you clip the beginning of it in, so it's just the sermon, and you upload it. So I would encourage you, on Sundays, you need to upload the audio so that Monday morning, if people want to listen to it and they missed it, they're much more likely to listen to it on Monday morning than Friday morning, because it's been the whole week and they're not really thinking about it. It's whatever. Yep. Now we upload the sermon audio on Sunday, and then the video gets uploaded on Monday. But that way, Monday morning, the podcast is there. Now, for us, why this matters, because for the church co-host our podcast, so we put it in there. Mm-hmm. But it makes it easier. So, if I'm out of town or if I can't do it or something happens, I can say, hey, Brian, can you upload it? Yep. And he can, because it's not this big ornate process of how do you figure out how to do it. Exactly. So having people to be able to help with a church website builder is helpful as well. Yep. So those are 5 resources churches should spend money on.
before we leave, we've got a bonus.
Bonus, yes.
The last one, I
That's
mean, we would be remiss not to mention this.
That's right.
The Growing Your Launch Team course, produced by Practical Church Planting.
Yours truly.
Practicalplanting.com/launch. This isn't like a shameless plug because we believe in it, and we haven't had a single person. I mean, money back guarantee. We don't want people to spend money on things that's not helpful for them.
Yep.
So no one yet has asked for their money back. So I think it's been pretty helpful. But we give you a practical plan if you're in the pre-launch phase, 2 years or less from launching. If people have asked us if we're already launched, if it's helpful, there are principles that you can pull from, but it's really like a plan for those in the pre-launch phase. And so we would recommend it's $150. It's a one-time thing, but I promise you, depending on the size of your team will double, or at least you'll have at least 10 more people on your launch team if you do what the course says, as opposed to not getting it all. So if 10 people are worth $150, I think you should buy it. If not, if 10 people are not worth $150, or you got 100 people on your launch team, then don't waste your money because you're killing it.
Yep.
But we think that's helpful, and we break down some of this stuff. But I mean, it's all practical. It's not just raise money, build a team, meet with people. It's how do you actually do social media? How do you plan launch team events? What should your calendar look like?
Yep.
You can get that at practicalplanting.com/launch, or just a lot of free resources at Practical Planting that are free.
Well, you know what? Oh goodness, practicalplanting.com/tools resources. Go there and poke around. I can't remember what it's called, but we have a page of resources that are just listed out by category of like financial software, of presentation software, of church database. So if you want to know like what I need of all these things, go there and it just links to their sites. Like we get nothing for it. And go there and look through it, and it'll answer your question of what I should get from these, because we don't put anything up there that we don't have experience with and would recommend to people regardless of their phase. So practicalplanning.com, go check it out.
Go check it out. That's 5 resources and a bonus that churches should spend some money on. Thanks for being with us, and we'll be with you next time on Practical Church Planting.